The Western media and Western governments are accusing Russia of carrying out a massacre in the town of Bucha. This is northwest of Kiev, right outside the city. This is where Russian soldiers and equipment had been positioned for about a month, and they recently withdrew, and this was after a planned withdrawal that they had announced a week earlier. When they left, the area was devastated. There was a battle there. It was a war. So Russians were shooting at Ukrainians and Ukrainians were shooting at Russians. And in my last video, I showed people footage that the Ukrainians themselves uploaded of them shelling the area. They were shelling Bucha. And when these rounds are coming in, they are going to kill Russians, and they're also going to kill any Ukrainian civilians out and about. This is the issue. This is why there needs to be an investigation. There is most certainly war dead scattered all across Bucha, but then there were these more recently killed people who were bound, executed, and their bodies mutilated. These bodies were found in and among the war dead. And when I say war dead, I mean people caught in the crossfire. It's not good that Russians were accidentally killing Ukrainian civilians, and it's not good that Ukraine was accidentally killing their own civilians, but that is what happens in war. I'm talking about a very deliberate massacre of civilians. Who did that? Who was going around outside of Kiev recently, binding people's hands behind their back, executing them, and mutilating their bodies and leaving them on the road? Who was doing that? Well, the New York Times confirms they have video of Ukrainians doing this right around the time the Bucha massacre supposedly took place, as Russian forces were withdrawing from the area. Ukrainians captured a number of Russian soldiers. They tortured them. They bound their hands behind their back. They tortured them. They executed them, and they mutilated their bodies. And as a matter of fact, I did a video on this earlier this week. The New York Times finally got around to talking about this and verifying it. So how about we take a look? So this is from the New York Times by Evan Hill, April 6, 2022. Video appears to show Ukrainian troops killing captured Russian soldiers. And these are clips from the video that I showed earlier this week. A video posted online, verified by the New York Times, appears to show a group of Ukrainian soldiers killing captured Russian troops outside a village west of Kiev. And Bucha is west of Kiev. And the way these bodies were left on the road is precisely how the bodies were left in Bucha. The bodies of the most recently killed, people who almost certainly were killed after Russia withdrew from the area. And where these Russian soldiers were killed was an area that Russia had withdrawn from, and these were stragglers who got caught and ambushed by Ukrainians. And they're describing the video, and I have a link to the video, and I will include that in the video description below. It is extremely graphic, so please don't watch it if you're not ready to watch something like that. It says the video was filmed on a road just north of the village of Dmitrivka, around 7 miles southwest of Bucha, where the discovery of hundreds of corpses of people in civilian clothes in recent days has prompted accusations that Russian troops killed civilians as they retreated. Except the only people we have on camera slaughtering people in this manner are Ukrainians. And these Russian soldiers, we've been hearing about how a lot of the victims in the Bucha massacre had white armbands. Well, guess what the New York Times reports about this video that they have verified of Ukrainians slaughtering Russian soldiers? Let's read. At least 3 other apparent Russian soldiers, including one with an obvious head wound, who has his hands tied behind his back, can be seen dead near the victim. All are wearing camouflage, and 3 have white armbands commonly worn by Russian troops. Equipment is scattered around them, and there are bloodstains near each man's head. Because they were bound and they were executed, and some of them appear to have been tortured. And for sure, at least one of them had their bodies mutilated afterward. This is all in the video. Again, it's extremely graphic. Don't watch it if you're not interested in seeing something like that. You definitely cannot unsee it. The killings appear to have been the result of a Ukrainian ambush of a Russian column that occurred on or around March 30th. This is exactly when Russia said they had withdrawn from Bucha. and right around when these people who were bound and executed turned up. These are extra bodies in addition to the war dead that an earlier New York Times article tried to conflate. And I'll show you this one real quick. This is the earlier New York Times article. Satellite images show bodies lay in Bucha for weeks despite Russian claims. And they're going to show you these bodies that turned up in satellite images. And they're going to admit that the causes of death are unclear. Some of the bodies were beside what appears to be an impact crater. Actually, there's many impact craters all around here. This was where Ukraine was shelling for weeks. And they most certainly killed civilians in the process. They were targeting Russians. They accidentally killed their own civilians. That is what happens in war. The New York Times is trying to conflate those war dead with more recently killed people wearing white armbands who were had their hands bound behind their back and who were executed. Exactly like what they're describing in this new video that has surfaced. So it's very clear what's going on here. And yet the Western world, the media, Western governments, they're going to just blame Russia. Everyone's saying there needs to be an investigation, but the West has already blamed Russia, even as evidence turns up, showing Ukrainians killing people in exactly the fashion that the people in Bucha appear to have been killed. The Ukraine's defense ministry tweeted about the destruction of the Russian convoy. So these aren't rogue soldiers doing this. This is a pattern that you see happening all across Ukraine. Ukrainians being caught carrying out war crimes with the Ministry of Defense even fully aware that this is what's going on. There's an earlier video. This is also confirmed by the New York Times. The video shows Russian prisoners of war in Ukraine being beaten and shot in their legs, and this was outside of Kharkov. This is a totally different city in Ukraine, in the east, where this was happening. And now we have another blatant war crime on film right outside Kiev, just a few miles away from Bucha, all during the time when Russia was withdrawing from these areas. And again, I'm going to repeat this every single time I talk about this topic. You have this Washington Post article admitting that Ukraine is using the civilian population as human shields. Washington Post journalists have witnessed Ukrainian anti-tank rockets, anti-aircraft guns, and armored personnel carriers placed near apartment buildings. The Ukrainian military has a responsibility under international law to remove their forces and equipment from civilian populated areas, and if that is not possible, to move civilians out of those areas. If they don't do that, that is a violation of the laws of war, because what they are doing is they are putting civilians at risk, because all that military equipment are legitimate targets. And I've showed this from Australian media. Ukrainian civilians stripped, tied up, and beaten by vigilantes in shocking videos. And as I pointed out, if you're following this conflict closely, you will notice that it's not just civilians and other vigilantes doing this. There's also police and military. So this is evidence that Ukrainians are more than willing to abuse their own people. They're more than willing to put their own people in jeopardy, in danger, using them as human shields. They have been caught on camera multiple times now, killing prisoners of war, torturing them, killing them, mutilating their bodies, and leaving their bodies strewn across the road in the exact same manner the Bucha victims were. And now the New York Times has verified this most recent video that came out just this week of Ukrainians killing Russian soldiers, bound Russian soldiers right outside of Kiev, right next to Bucha. So did they also kill people in Bucha in the same manner? Have they killed civilians elsewhere? Remember, the Ukrainian president Vladimir Zelensky said there's going to be more of these bodies found. Of course there are. Their soldiers are doing it everywhere, in every area where Russia vacates. Ukrainians are going in there and they're killing these people who they perceive as collaborators. And they're also doing it to any Russian soldiers that are lagging behind. Very obvious, caught blatantly on video. So again, the Western media is going to continue accusing Russia, even as they show evidence that it was obviously Ukraine. The best I can do is put this information out there. There are people being censored off of Twitter, off of Facebook, off of YouTube by bringing this up. The fact that you cannot even put the word Bucha in the video title or description without the video being flagged and taken down tells you everything you need to know about how serious the West is about discussing this, investigating this, and actually holding the people who did it accountable and making sure justice is done. They're not. They're interested in politicizing this and silencing anyone who tries to do otherwise. If you thought this video was useful, please like it and please share it. Share it widely. In the video description below, there will be the links to all of these articles, including the New York Times segment verifying this most recent video. Please show this to people so that they can see for themselves, and maybe you can get their critical thinking jump-started and working again after over a month of people just going along on the bandwagon. So please like, share, subscribe. In the video description, there are also links to where else you can find my work in case I get deleted off of YouTube. I'm not going to couch my message. I'm going to talk about these topics, and if YouTube wants to censor me, let them censor me. But please find where else I'm posting these videos on Odyssey and on Rumble. The links are in the video description below. Also in the video description below are ways you can help support my work. You could do that through Buy Me a Coffee, Patreon, and PayPal. To everyone who has been helping out, thank you so much. Whether it's one-time donations or month-to-month, or even if you're just helping share my work, sending me news tips or sending me kind words, I greatly appreciate all of that. And as always, thank you for watching.